A desperate call from an unknown number. A child's trembling voice begging for help. A powerful CEO who almost hung up. When he decides to investigate what seems like a prank call, he discovers a truth so shocking it will change his life forever. Some secrets are hidden in plain sight. Some heroes answer when no one else will. This is the story of one phone call that changed everything. Before this story begins, subscribe to the channel and type Amen in the comments and tell us where are you watching from. The spring rain hammered against the windows of the 20th floor as Christopher Hayes stood in his corner office overlooking the restless streets of downtown Chicago. At 42, he had built Meridian Industries from nothing into a technological empire worth billions. His salt and pepper hair, always perfectly combed, and his steel blue eyes reflected a man who had conquered every challenge life threw at him. Except one. The one that left a permanent hollow in his chest. He had never found someone to share his success with, never experienced the warmth of a family waiting for him at home. His assistant knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Hayes, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Christopher nodded without turning, his gaze lost in the grey cityscape. His phone vibrated on the mahogany desk. Unknown number. He usually ignored such calls, but something made him answer this time. "Hello?" His voice was firm, professional. What came next shattered the cold silence of his executive world. "Daddy!" A small, trembling voice whispered through the line. "Daddy, I've been cooking for 3 years. I'm so tired. My hands hurt. Please come get me." Christopher froze. His heart, so controlled and measured, stumbled. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "I found Mommy's phone," the little voice continued, breaking with emotion. "Mrs. Patterson says if I tell Mommy, she'll send my baby brothers away. But I can't do this anymore, Daddy. I'm only 7. I don't want to cook anymore." The words hit Christopher like physical blows. Cooking? For 3 years? That would mean since she was 4. Impossible. This had to be some elaborate prank, perhaps a social experiment or a scam, yet the raw pain in that child's voice carried an authenticity that froze his blood. "Sweetheart, I think you have the wrong number," he said gently, his businessman facade cracking. "I'm not your father, but tell me, where are you? Are you safe right now?" A muffled sound came through like someone quickly hiding something. "I have to go. She's coming. Please, Daddy. 47 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Please." The line went dead. Christopher stared at his phone, his mind racing. Every rational part of him screamed prank, hoax, manipulation. But that voice, that desperate, exhausted little voice. He pulled up his computer, quickly searching the address. Maple Street was in Riverside, a working-class neighborhood about 30 minutes away. He grabbed his coat. "Cancel the board meeting," he told his assistant as he strode past her desk. Something urgent came up. The drive to Riverside felt eternal. Christopher's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as he navigated through traffic, that small voice echoing in his mind. What was he doing? Chasing a possible prank? Invading someone's privacy based on a random phone call? Yet his instincts, the same ones that had guided him through impossible business negotiations, screamed that something was terribly wrong. Number 47, Maple Street, was a modest 3-story brick building, weathered but maintained. Christopher sat in his car for a moment, observing. The neighborhood was quiet, families going about their evening routines, normal, peaceful. Maybe he was overreacting. He was about to leave when he saw her. A little girl, no more than 7, with blonde hair tied in a messy ponytail, appeared at a 3rd-floor window. Even from the distance, Christopher could see her small frame, her thin arms. She was looking down at the street as if searching for something or someone. Their eyes met for just a second before she disappeared from view, but it was enough. Christopher was out of his car and climbing the stairs to the third floor before he consciously decided to move. His heart pounded as he reached apartment 3B. He could hear voices inside, children crying, an adult woman's sharp tone. He knocked. The sounds inside immediately stopped. The door opened a crack, held by a security chain. A woman in her 50s with graying hair and cold eyes peered out. "Yes? Can I help you?" "My name is Christopher Hayes. I received a phone call from this address. A little girl who seemed to be in distress." The woman's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about. You must have the wrong apartment." "I don't think I do." Christopher's voice took on the authoritative tone that made boardrooms fall silent. "A 7-year-old girl called me, claiming she's been forced to cook for 3 years. She gave me this exact address." "That's ridiculous. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Patterson." Christopher said the name the child had mentioned, watching the woman's face carefully. Her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second. "Enough. I'm calling the police if you don't leave immediately." "Please do," Christopher replied calmly. "In fact, let me help you with that." He pulled out his phone. "I'm sure they'll be very interested in investigating a claim of child endangerment." The standoff lasted only seconds, but felt like hours. Finally, a new voice came from inside the apartment. Weak, exhausted, but determined. "Mr. Hayes, is that really you?" Christopher's chest tightened. Through the crack in the door, he could see her now, the little girl from the window. She was even smaller up close, her face pale with exhaustion, her eyes carrying a weariness no child should know. And her hands. God, her hands were wrapped in makeshift bandages stained with what looked like old burns. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm here," he said softly, his voice breaking despite his efforts to stay strong. "Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," she whispered. "Lily Morrison. Are you really going to help us?" Before Christopher could respond, 3 identical small faces appeared behind Lily. Triplet boys, around 4 years old, with the same blonde hair and blue eyes. They clung to their sister's legs, their faces streaked with recent tears, their clothes rumpled and stained. "These are my brothers," Lily said, with a tired but protective tone. "Jake, Lucas, and Noah, I take care of them." Christopher felt something break inside him. The scene before him was everything wrong with the world condensed into one moment. A 7-year-old child, barely bigger than a doll herself, serving as a parent to 3 preschoolers, her hands damaged from cooking, her childhood stolen. "Mrs. Patterson," Christopher said, his voice now ice-cold, "you have 2 options. You can open this door and let me speak with these children properly, or I can make one phone call that will bring every authority in this city down on this apartment. Your choice. You have 10 seconds. The woman's face cycled through emotions, anger, fear, calculation. Finally, with shaking hands, she undid the chain. The apartment that Christopher stepped into would haunt him for years. Small, cramped, but that wasn't the issue. It was the details. The kitchen, where a step stool sat permanently in front of the stove. The counter cluttered with cooking utensils sized for adult hands, but clearly used by much smaller ones. The living room, where toys were noticeably absent, replaced by blankets and pillows arranged like makeshift beds. The air thick with the smell of overcooked food and underlying desperation. But worst of all were the children themselves. The triplets, who should have been running, playing, full of energy, instead sat quietly on the floor, too well trained in silence. And Lily, standing in the center of it all like a tiny, exhausted general watching over her troops. "Where is their mother?" Christopher asked, his voice carefully controlled. "She works," Mrs. Patterson said defensively. "2 jobs. She's doing her best. She pays me to watch them." "Watch them?" Christopher's voice rose despite his best efforts. "Is that what you call this? A 7-year-old child cooking for 3 preschoolers? Look at her hands. She volunteered. She wanted to help. I'm 7 years old." Lily's voice, so quiet until now, suddenly rang out. "I didn't volunteer. You said if I didn't cook, you'd tell Mommy that I was bad and she'd have to send Jake, Lucas and Noah away. You said it was my fault they cried so much. You said I had to fix it." The dam broke. 3 years of held-back tears, of suppressed fear, of carrying a burden no child should bear, came flooding out. Lily collapsed, her small body shaking with sobs. Immediately, her 3 little brothers, with an instinct that broke Christopher's heart, rushed to her, wrapping their tiny arms around their sister, patting her head with clumsy comfort. "Lily, no cry," one of them said. "We love Lily." Christopher knelt down, bringing himself to the children's level. "Lily, sweetheart, listen to me. None of this is your fault, do you understand? None of it. But Mrs. Patterson said Mrs. Patterson is wrong, and what she did is illegal, very, very illegal." He looked up at the woman, who had turned pale. "Sit down. Don't move. Don't speak. If you try to leave, I will have security here in 2 minutes." He turned his attention back to Lily, his voice softening. "When does your mummy come home?" "Late," Lily whispered. "After we're supposed to be sleeping. She works at the diner until 9, then cleans offices until midnight." Christopher's jaw clenched. A mother working herself to exhaustion, paying someone to protect her children, unaware that her daughter was being exploited. "And you've been cooking for your brothers since you were 4. Lily nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. "At first, it was just heating up soup, but then Mrs. Patterson said I needed to make real meals. She showed me once, then said I had to do it myself. I burned myself a lot at first." She held up her bandaged hands. "It still happens sometimes." "What do you cook for them?" "Pasta, mostly. Sometimes rice and beans. I can make scrambled eggs now without burning them too much. And sandwiches, but Mrs. Patterson says sandwiches aren't a real dinner." Christopher felt tears threatening for the first time in years. "Lily, you are the bravest, strongest little girl I've ever met. But no child should have to be this brave. Do you understand?" "Are you going to call the police?" Mrs. Patterson interjected, her voice now pleading. "Please, I need this job. I didn't hurt them. They're fine." Christopher stood, his full height and presence filling the small apartment. "Fine? You call this fine?" He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police and Child Protective Services, and then I'm calling my lawyer. And then we're going to wait right here for Lily's mother to come home, because she deserves to know what's been happening to her children while she's been breaking her back to provide for them." As he dialed, Lily's small voice spoke up one more time. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. I didn't think anyone would come." Christopher looked at her, this impossibly small child with impossibly huge eyes, and made a silent promise. Whatever it took, whatever resources he had to use, he would make sure this family was protected. That Lily got her childhood back. That justice was served. He didn't know it yet, but this phone call, this moment, was about to change not just Lily's life, but his own in ways he couldn't imagine. The triplets had fallen asleep on the floor, curled around each other like puppies, with Lily sitting guard beside them. And Christopher Hayes, billionaire CEO, sat on a worn-out couch in a stranger's apartment, waiting for the authorities and for a mother who was about to have her world turned upside down. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean. Inside apartment 3B, something else was beginning. Not just an ending to 3 years of suffering, but the first page of a story about healing, hope, and the unexpected ways love can find us when we least expect it. The police arrived first, 2 officers responding to Christopher's call with professional efficiency. Officer Martinez, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, immediately knelt beside the children while her partner, Officer Brennan, took Mrs. Patterson into the hallway for questioning. Within minutes, a social worker named Patricia Chen arrived, her arms full of emergency supplies and her demeanor calm despite the gravity of the situation. Christopher watched as Patricia gently examined Lily's hands, her expression growing more concerned with each layer of bandage removed. The burns underneath ranged from old scars to recent blisters. Some had been treated with basic first aid, others had clearly been ignored. The little girl sat stoically through the examination, only flinching when Patricia touched a particularly tender spot. "Lily, sweetheart," Patricia said softly, "these burns need proper medical attention. When was the last time you saw a doctor?" Lily's eyes darted to the hallway, where Mrs. Patterson stood with Officer Brennan. "I don't remember. Mrs. Patterson said doctors were too expensive and Mommy couldn't afford to miss work." "Mrs. Patterson doesn't make those decisions," Patricia assured her. "Your mother does, and I promise you she would want you to see a doctor." Christopher's phone buzzed. His assistant Jennifer had sent him a text. "Bored furious. Emergency meeting rescheduled for tomorrow morning. Everything okay?" He typed back a simple yes and turned his phone to silent. Nothing in his corporate world mattered right now compared to these 4 children. "Mr. Hayes," Patricia addressed him directly, "I need to understand your connection to this family. Officer Martinez says you're not a relative?" "No," Christopher admitted. "Lily called my number by mistake, looking for her father. She was asking for help. I couldn't just ignore it." Patricia studied him for a long moment, her professional assessment clear. That was very fortunate for these children. Many people would have dismissed such a call. "I almost did," Christopher confessed, the weight of that near decision settling on his shoulders. "I almost hung up and went back to my meeting." "But you didn't." Patricia's voice held approval. "You listened. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." The sound of rapid footsteps on the stairs made everyone turn. A woman burst through the door, still wearing a diner uniform, her face flushed from running. She was in her early 30s, with blonde hair pulled back in a practical bun and the same striking blue eyes as her children. Despite clear exhaustion, she carried herself with a determined grace. "Someone called me at work," she gasped, her eyes frantically scanning the room. "They said police were here with my children. What's happened? Where's—" Her gaze landed on Lily, and then on the medical supplies scattered around her daughter. "Oh my God, Lily!" "Baby, what's wrong?" "Mommy!" Lily's composure, held together so bravely until now, finally shattered. She ran to her mother, burying her face in her uniform. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell, but I couldn't do it anymore. My hands hurt so much." "Tell? Tell what? Lily, what are you talking about? What are—" The woman, whom Christopher now knew must be Catherine Morrison, held her daughter tightly, while her eyes demanded answers from the adults in the room. "Someone explain to me what's going on right now." Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Officer Martinez. We need to ask you some questions about your childcare arrangements. But first, when was the last time you saw your daughter's hands?" Catherine looked down at Lily, gently taking her small hands in her own. The bandages had been removed, revealing the full extent of the damage. Catherine's face went white, then red, then white again. "What? How?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Mrs. Morrison," Patricia Chen spoke gently but firmly, "your daughter has burns consistent with prolonged exposure to cooking surfaces. Multiple burns of varying ages. She states she's been cooking meals for her brothers for approximately 3 years. Were you aware of this arrangement?" "Cooking?" Catherine's voice rose to a near shout. "She's 7 years old. Of course I wasn't aware. I would never—" She spun toward the hallway where Mrs. Patterson stood. "Linda, what did you do to my baby?" "Now, Catherine, let me explain," Mrs. Patterson began, but Catherine's fury cut through whatever excuse she planned to offer. "Explain? You were supposed to watch them." I paid you every week, gave you extra for food, trusted you with the most precious things in my life, and you made my 7-year-old daughter cook." The confrontation escalated quickly, requiring Officer Brennan to step between the two women. In the chaos, Christopher found himself moving instinctively toward the children. The triplets had woken up, confused and frightened by the shouting. He knelt beside them, his voice gentle. "It's okay, guys. Your mommy's here now. Everything's going to be all right." 3 pairs of blue eyes stared at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Finally, one of them, Jake, if Christopher remembered correctly from Lily's earlier introduction, reached out and touched Christopher's tie. "Pretty," the little boy said simply. Christopher felt his throat tighten. Such a simple, innocent observation in the midst of chaos. "Thank you, buddy. You know what? You're pretty brave, all 3 of you." "We have Lily," another triplet, Lucas, stated matter-of-factly. "Lily takes care of us." "She does, doesn't she?" Christopher agreed. "But you know what? Lily is still a little girl, just like your little boys. And little kids shouldn't have to take care of other little kids all by themselves. That's what grown-ups are supposed to do." "Do like Mommy?" the third triplet, Noah, asked. "Exactly like Mommy." By now, Catherine had been convinced by Officer Martinez to step away from Mrs. Patterson, though her anger still radiated like heat. She scooped up her triplets, holding them close while tears streamed down her face. "I didn't know," she kept repeating. "I swear I didn't know." "We believe you, Mrs. Morrison," Patricia said, "but we need to document everything that's happened. Officer Brennan is taking Mrs. Patterson's statement separately. I need to talk with you and your children, preferably somewhere more comfortable than this apartment." Christopher cleared his throat. "If I may make a suggestion," or all eyes turned to him. "I have a suite at the Riverside Hotel that I keep for business associates visiting from out of town. It's empty right now. Mrs. Morrison and her children could stay there tonight, give everyone some space to process this. It has multiple bedrooms, and room service can provide proper meals." Catherine looked at him for the first time with full attention, her eyes narrowing slightly with protective suspicion. "And you are?" "Christopher Hayes. I'm the person Lily called today. She thought I was her father." Catherine's expression softened, then crumbled. Her father left before the triplets were born. He said 4 kids were too much responsibility. She laughed bitterly. "Too much responsibility for a grown man, but apparently perfect for a 4-year-old girl to handle." "Mrs. Morrison," Patricia interjected, "Mr. Hayes's offer is generous, and honestly, it would be better than staying here tonight. We'll need to thoroughly inspect this apartment as part of our investigation, which means you can't stay here anyway. The alternative is a temporary shelter facility." Catherine looked around at her children, exhausted, confused, frightened. Lily's hands were now properly bandaged by Patricia, but the trauma was far from over. The triplets clung to their mother, sensing the adult turmoil, even if they couldn't understand it. Finally, she nodded. "Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. That's very kind. Please call me Christopher." The next hour was a blur of activity. Statements were taken, Mrs. Patterson was escorted away in handcuffs for child endangerment, and Catherine was given a preliminary list of medical appointments for Lily. Christopher arranged for his driver to pick up his car while he drove the Morrison family to the hotel in Catherine's aging minivan, which sputtered and wheezed the entire way. "I keep meaning to get it fixed," Catherine said quietly from the passenger seat, her voice thick with exhaustion and unshed tears. "But between rent and groceries and paying Linda," her voice broke. "God, I was paying her to hurt my daughter." "You were paying her to protect your children," Christopher corrected gently. "She's the one who betrayed that trust. This isn't your fault, Catherine." "Isn't it?" She stared out the window at the darkening city. "I was so focused on keeping us fed and housed that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. What kind of mother does that make me?" Christopher glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily sat between two of her brothers, the third strapped in a car seat on her other side. Despite everything, she was playing a simple hand game with them, her bandaged hands moving carefully, making them smile, still protecting them even now. "It makes you a mother doing her best in an impossible situation," Christopher said. "You're working 2 jobs to support 4 kids alone. That's not failure, Catherine, that's heroism." She turned to look at him, really look at him for the first time. "Why are you doing this? Helping us? You don't know us." "Honestly?" Christopher kept his eyes on the road, "because when Lily called me today, something inside me woke up. I've spent 20 years building a company, making money, achieving success, but I've never felt as purposeful as I did racing to that apartment to make sure one little girl was safe. Maybe I needed this as much as she needed someone to answer that call." Catherine was quiet for a moment. "The newspaper did a profile on you last year. Chicago's most eligible bachelor CEO, or something like that. They mentioned you donate a lot to children's charities." "I do," Christopher confirmed. "It's easy to write checks. What happened today wasn't easy, but it was real. And it mattered in a way that board meetings and profit margins never will." The Riverside Hotel was elegant, but not ostentatious. Exactly the kind of place where a wealthy family could stay comfortably without feeling overwhelmed. The suite Christopher had arranged was actually 2 connected rooms with a shared living area. More than enough space for Catherine and her 4 children. The hotel staff, clearly briefed by Christopher's assistant, had prepared the suite with remarkable efficiency. The refrigerator was stocked with child-friendly foods. Toys and books were arranged in the living room. Fresh clothes in various children's sizes were laid out on the beds. Most importantly, there was a first aid kit with advanced burn treatment supplies. Mr. Hayes, the hotel manager, a distinguished man named Robert, greeted them personally. "Everything is ready as you requested. Please don't hesitate to call if you need anything. Anything at all." Catherine stood in the middle of the suite, looking overwhelmed. "I can't afford this," she said bluntly. "I appreciate the gesture, but I can't accept charity I can't repay." "It's not charity," Christopher said. "Consider it an investment in 4 incredible kids who deserve a chance to be kids, starting tonight." "Mommy, can we take a bath?" Lily asked hopefully. "The tub here is so big." Catherine's eyes filled with tears again. "Yes, baby, you can all take a bath, a long, warm bath." She turned to Christopher. "I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. Just focus on your children tonight. Everything else can wait until tomorrow." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Catherine, what Lily did today, calling for help, that took extraordinary courage. She learned that courage from somewhere, from someone. She learned it from watching you fight for your family every single day." After Christopher left, Catherine drew a bath for her children, watching through tears as they splashed and played with the provided bath toys. Lily, despite her bandaged hands, was in the middle of it all, making her brothers laugh with silly voices and water games. But later, after the triplets were asleep in their beds, Catherine found Lily standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. She joined her daughter, pulling her close. "Lily, baby, I need you to know something. What happened with Mrs. Patterson? None of that was your responsibility. None of it was your fault." "But I should have told you sooner," Lily whispered. "I was just so scared. She said if I told, you'd lose your jobs and we'd end up on the street and the triplets would be taken away. I couldn't let that happen, Mommy. I couldn't let them take Jake and Lucas and Noah." Catherine held her daughter tighter, marveling at the strength in such a small body. "You protected your brothers. You were so brave. But, sweetheart, you're 7 years old. You should be protected, not doing the protecting." "I'm almost 8, Lily said with a small attempt at humor. "My birthday's next month. I know, baby, and we're going to celebrate it properly this year, I promise. Mommy, is Mr. Hayes going to be our new daddy? The question caught Catherine completely off guard. What? No, sweetie. Mr. Hayes is just a kind man who helped us today. Oh. Lily sounded disappointed. I think he'd be a good daddy. He was really nice to Jake, Lucas, and Noah, and he came when I called. Real daddies are supposed to do that, right? Catherine felt her heart crack a little more. Yes, honey. Real daddies are supposed to do that. As she tucked Lily into bed, Catherine's mind churned with everything that had happened. The horror of discovering what her daughter had endured, the rage at Mrs. Patterson's exploitation, the overwhelming guilt at not seeing what was happening, and underneath it all, a confusing awareness of Christopher Hayes, his kindness, his immediate action, the way he had handled her children with such natural gentleness. She shook her head, dismissing such thoughts as ridiculous. He was a billionaire CEO who had helped them in a crisis. Tomorrow they would return to reality, finding new childcare, dealing with legal proceedings, figuring out how to afford proper medical treatment for Lily's hands. Men like Christopher Hayes didn't stay in the lives of working-class mothers with 4 kids. But as she drifted off to sleep on the impossibly comfortable hotel bed, Catherine couldn't help but remember the way he had knelt beside her children, speaking to them with such genuine care. And despite everything, despite the trauma of the day, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Christopher couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, he sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, a glass of whiskey untouched on the table beside him, his mind replaying every moment of the day. The sound of Lily's voice on the phone, the sight of her burned hands, the way the triplets had instinctively comforted their sister. Catherine's fierce protective love mixed with heartbreaking guilt. He had built his company through calculated decisions, careful planning, and emotional distance. Yet in less than 6 hours, 4 children and their struggling mother had completely demolished his carefully constructed walls. He couldn't stop thinking about them. Couldn't stop worrying if they were okay in the hotel, if Lily was sleeping peacefully, if Catherine had managed to eat something. His phone buzzed with an email. Patricia Chen, the social worker, had sent him a preliminary report as a courtesy, given his involvement in the case. Christopher's jaw clenched as he read the details. Mrs. Patterson had initially denied everything, then tried to blame Lily for volunteering to cook. But interviews with neighbors revealed a pattern: the sound of a child crying in the kitchen, smoke alarms going off repeatedly, Mrs. Patterson leaving the children alone for hours at a time. One neighbor, Mrs. Chen noted, had considered calling Child Protective Services multiple times, but had been reassured by Mrs. Patterson that everything was fine and that she was teaching the girl some responsibility. The charges were serious: child endangerment, neglect, and exploitation of a minor. Mrs. Patterson would likely face jail time. But what struck Christopher most was a note at the end of Patricia's report. Despite 3 years of exploitation, Lily Morrison shows remarkable resilience and emotional intelligence. Her primary concern throughout all interviews was the welfare of her brothers and mother. Recommend extensive therapy for all children, but prognosis for recovery is good with proper support. Christopher set down his phone and walked to his window, watching the city sleep below him. Somewhere out there, in a hotel room he had provided, 4 children were finally safe. It should have been enough. He had done his part. He could return to his normal life now, back to board meetings and profit margins and the comfortable numbness he had perfected over the years. But he knew he couldn't. The next morning, Christopher showed up at the hotel suite at 8 o'clock with bags of fresh pastries and coffee. Catherine answered the door in yesterday's clothes, her hair damp from a shower, surprise evident on her face. "Christopher," I wasn't expecting... I mean, you didn't have to... I wanted to check on everyone, he said simply. Is this a bad time? No, no, come in. The kids are eating breakfast. Hotel room service is apparently magical in their eyes. She stepped aside to let him in, then added quietly, "Thank you again for this. We'll be out of your hair today. I need to figure out our next steps." The suite was organized chaos. The triplets sat at the dining table, systematically working through plates of pancakes and fruit. Lily was beside them, carefully cutting up fruit into small pieces with her bandaged hands, an action so automatic she probably didn't even realize she was doing it. "Good morning," Christopher greeted the children. 4 faces looked up, and he was struck again by how identical the triplets were. "I brought pastries. Chocolate croissants and apple turnovers. I wasn't sure what everyone liked." "I love chocolate," one of the triplets announced. "Me too," said another. "Me 3," added the third. Lily smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her small, serious face. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. That's really nice." "You're welcome, Lily." "How are your hands feeling this morning?" "Better. Mrs. Chen gave Mommy special cream to put on them. It doesn't hurt as much now." Christopher and Catherine retreated to the small kitchenette, giving them a semblance of privacy while still keeping the children in view. Catherine poured coffee with practiced efficiency, her movements betraying years of waitressing. "Patricia Chen called me this morning," Catherine said. "She wants Lily to see a pediatric burn specialist today, and all 4 kids should start with a child psychologist this week. She's given me a list of sliding scale clinics, but..." She trailed off, her frustration evident. "But," Christopher prompted, "but even sliding scale clinics cost money I don't have. I already missed a shift yesterday. If I miss more work, I'll lose one or both of my jobs. And without Mrs. Patterson, I don't have anyone to watch the kids. I'm stuck in an impossible situation." Why, Christopher had been thinking about this exact problem all night. What if you didn't have to work 2 jobs anymore? Catherine looked at him sharply. "I'm not accepting a handout, Christopher. I appreciate everything you've done, but I've been taking care of my family on my own for 4 years. I'm not starting to be dependent on someone else's charity now." "It's not charity," Christopher said, echoing his words from the previous night. "It's a job offer. Meridian Industries needs someone to oversee our new community outreach program. It's a real position with a real salary, benefits, reasonable hours. You'd be perfect for it." "I don't have any experience in corporate outreach," Catherine protested, though he could see the temptation in her eyes. "I'm a waitress and a cleaning lady. You're a mother who has managed to keep 4 children fed, housed, and cared for on a shoestring budget while working 2 jobs. You know how to stretch resources, prioritize needs, and solve problems under pressure. That's exactly what community outreach requires. Plus," he added with a slight smile, "you're not afraid to tell a billionaire CEO that he's full of it. That's a surprisingly rare and valuable quality." Catherine laughed, a genuine sound that made her whole face light up. Christopher felt something shift in his chest. She was beautiful, he realized. Not in the polished, artificial way of the women in his social circle, but in a real, genuine way. Her exhaustion couldn't hide the strength in her features, the intelligence in her eyes, the fierce determination in the set of her jaw. "I can't just accept a job because you feel sorry for us," Catherine said, though her resolve was clearly wavering. "I'm not offering because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering because yesterday, watching you with your children, seeing how you fought for them, how you immediately put their needs first, that's the kind of person I want representing my company in the community. Someone who actually cares. Someone who understands what real people need because she's lived it." "Mommy!" Lily's voice interrupted them. "Jake spilled his juice!" Catherine moved immediately into action, grabbing napkins, comforting Jake, who had started to cry, wiping up the mess, while simultaneously preventing Lucas and Noah from trying to help in ways that would make it worse. Christopher watched her seamlessly handle the small crisis, never losing patience, never raising her voice, just efficiently solving the problem while making Jake feel better about his mistake. "See," Christopher said when she returned, "that's exactly the kind of problem-solving I need." Catherine studied him for a long moment. "Why are you really doing this? And please don't say it's just because Lily called you. There's more to it than that." Christopher considered his answer carefully. "My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. I went into the foster care system. Some homes were good, some were terrible. But I learned early that most people don't actually see struggling kids. They walk past them every day and just don't see them. Yesterday, Lily called me and I almost didn't answer. I almost was one of those people who don't see. But I did answer, and it changed something in me. Made me realize that all the money and success in the world doesn't mean anything if I'm not using it to actually help people who need it." Catherine's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your parents. It was a long time ago, but it shaped who I became. And maybe it prepared me to understand, at least a little bit, what your kids are going through. Lily asked me last night if you were going to be our new daddy," Catherine said suddenly, then looked mortified. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate to share. I wanted you to know that your kindness has meant the world to them, to all of us." Christopher felt that shift in his chest again, stronger this time. "What did you tell her?" "That you were just a kind man who helped us, that we couldn't expect more than that." "And what if there could be more?" The words were out before Christopher could stop them. He ran his hand through his hair, suddenly feeling like a nervous teenager instead of a confident CEO. "I'm not propositioning you. I just mean, what if this wasn't just a one-time thing? What if I wanted to be part of your lives, help out, be there for the kids, and for you?" Catherine stared at him, a mixture of emotions playing across her face. "Christopher, you don't know us. Yesterday was insane and emotional, and you got swept up in the moment. But in a week or a month, when reality sets in, you're going to realize that a ready-made family of 4 kids isn't what you want. Especially not my chaotic, complicated, traumatized kids. You're amazing, resilient, extraordinary kids," Christopher corrected. "And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm being impulsive. But I haven't felt this alive, this purposeful, in 20 years. So yes, maybe I'm asking you to take a chance on a stranger. But you took a chance yesterday when you agreed to come to this hotel. Take another chance. Let me help. Let me be part of this." "Why?" Catherine asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why us?" Christopher looked past her at the children. Lily was now reading a picture book to her brothers, her voice animated, bringing the story to life despite her bandaged hands. The triplets sat transfixed, their identical faces showing identical expressions of wonder. "Because when I look at them, I see the kid I was, lost, scared, needing someone to care. And when I look at you, I see the kind of person I wish I'd had in my life back then, someone who fights for her family no matter what, someone who doesn't give up, someone who deserves support instead of being left to struggle alone." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "This is crazy. Completely crazy," Christopher agreed. "I have 4 kids. So I've noticed. We're a package deal. You can't just be there for the cute parts and disappear when things get hard. I wouldn't dream of it. And I'm not looking for a relationship. I can't handle that kind of complication right now." "Understood. We'll figure this out as we go." Catherine wiped her eyes, a small laugh escaping. "You're serious about the job offer?" "Completely serious. 60,000 a year to start, full health benefits, retirement plan, 3 weeks paid vacation, and flexible hours so you can be there for the kids. The position is real, Catherine. We've been trying to fill it for months." 60,000, Catherine's voice broke. "That's more than I make in both my jobs combined. Then you've been grossly underpaid for your skills and work ethic. When would I start? Whenever you're ready. Next week? Next month? We can work around what the kids need." Catherine looked at her children again, then back at Christopher. "You're either the best person I've ever met or completely insane." "Probably a little of both," Christopher admitted with a smile. "So is that a yes?" "It's a yes to the job," Catherine said firmly. "Everything else, let's just see what happens. No promises, no expectations, just taking it one day at a time." "One day at a time," Christopher agreed, extending his hand. "Deal?" Catherine shook his hand, and for a moment neither of them let go. The handshake lasted just a second too long to be purely professional, and when they finally broke contact, both looked slightly flustered. "Mommy!" Lily called out. "Can Mr. Hayes stay for breakfast, please?" Catherine looked at Christopher, a question in her eyes. He nodded. "Yes, sweetie, Mr. Hayes can stay." And so Christopher Hayes, billionaire CEO, spent his morning sitting on a hotel room floor with 4 children, playing with building blocks and reading picture books, while their mother watched with a mixture of gratitude, bewilderment, and something that might have been the beginning of hope. None of them knew it yet, but this was just the beginning. The road ahead would have challenges: legal proceedings against Mrs. Patterson, therapy sessions for the children, adjustments to new routines, and the complicated dance of 2 adults trying to build something new while protecting 4 young hearts. But for now, in this moment, they were just 7 people sharing breakfast and stories, building towers out of blocks and building something else out of trust, kindness, and the unexpected connections that change lives forever. Outside the hotel window, Chicago bustled with its usual morning chaos. But inside Suite 428, something rare and precious was taking root. Something that would grow, through challenges and triumphs, into a family that none of them had planned for, but all of them desperately needed. The story was just beginning. The following weeks transformed into a whirlwind of change for the Morrison family. Catherine started her new position at Meridian Industries, working from a bright office with windows overlooking the Chicago River. Her colleagues were welcoming, and the work, coordinating community programs, connecting struggling families with resources, building partnerships with local organizations, felt meaningful in a way her previous jobs never had. But the transition wasn't without its challenges. Lily's medical appointments revealed that while her burns would heal, some scarring would be permanent. The pediatric burn specialist, Dr. Sarah Wong, was gentle but direct with Catherine during their consultation. The good news is that Lily's injuries, while serious, are mostly superficial burns, Dr. Wong explained, reviewing X-rays and examination notes. There's no significant nerve damage or loss of function. With proper care, moisturizing, and possibly some scar reduction treatments when she's older, her hands will be fine. "And the bad news?" Catherine asked, though she could sense it coming. "The bad news is that these scars will be a visible reminder of what she went through. And at 7, almost 8, Lily is at an age where she's starting to become aware of how others perceive her. We need to watch for signs of self-consciousness or anxiety about her appearance." Catherine had noticed Lily hiding her hands at school, keeping them in her pockets or under the desk. When other children asked what happened, Lily would mumble something about a cooking accident and change the subject. The school counselor had recommended therapy, and Catherine had enrolled all 4 children in sessions with Dr. Michael Foster, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. Christopher had been present through all of it. Not overbearing, not intrusive, but there. He attended medical appointments when Catherine needed support. He picked up the triplets from their new daycare when Catherine had late meetings. He showed up on Saturday mornings with groceries and stayed to help with household chores. And slowly, carefully, he was becoming part of their lives. "You don't have to do this," Catherine told him one evening after he'd spent 3 hours helping Jake, Lucas, and Noah build an elaborate fort out of couch cushions. You've already done so much. You gave me a job, helped us find a better apartment, connected us with resources. You don't owe us your free time too." Christopher looked at her seriously. "Catherine, I'm not here because I owe you anything. I'm here because I want to be here. Because when I'm not here, I'm thinking about being here. Is that okay?" Catherine felt her heart skip. Over the past month, she'd been trying to maintain emotional distance, to protect herself and her children from getting too attached. But Christopher made it increasingly difficult. He was patient with the triplets' chaos, gentle with Lily's trauma, respectful of Catherine's boundaries, and genuinely seemed to enjoy the messy reality of their lives. "It's okay," she admitted quietly. "More than okay. The kids adore you. Lily asks about you every day. The boys think you're some kind of superhero." "And what do you think?" Christopher asked, his blue eyes holding her gaze. Catherine felt herself blush, something she hadn't done in years. "I think you're dangerous." "Dangerous?" "To my carefully constructed walls, to my determination to do this all on my own, to my belief that people like you don't actually exist in real life." Christopher smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. "People like me? Kind, patient, present, real." Catherine shook her head. "Every man I've known has run at the first sign of difficulty. My father left when I was 10. Lily's father disappeared when he found out I was pregnant with triplets. Even casual dates would vanish once they realized I had kids. But you showed up to help a stranger's child, and you're still here, building cushion forts and reading bedtime stories. It doesn't make sense." "Maybe it doesn't have to make sense," Christopher suggested. "Maybe some things just are." "Day." Their moment was interrupted by a crash from the kitchen, followed by 3 identical voices saying, "Uh-oh," in perfect unison. Catherine and Christopher rushed to find the triplets covered in flour, the bag they'd somehow pulled from the pantry now decorating the kitchen floor like snow. "We making cookies," Noah announced proudly. "For Mr. Christopher," Jake added. "Mr. Christopher," Catherine corrected automatically, then caught Christopher's amused expression. "Although Mr. Christopher is pretty adorable." "I answer to both," Christopher said, kneeling down to the boys' level. "But guys, we need to ask before we start cooking projects. Remember what we talked about? Kitchen safety?" 3 blonde heads nodded solemnly. "Safety first," Lucas recited. "That's right. How about we clean this up together, and then tomorrow, if your mom says it's okay, we can actually bake cookies the safe way." "With Lily?" Jake asked. Christopher hesitated, glancing at Catherine. They'd been careful about involving Lily in anything kitchen-related, not wanting to trigger difficult memories. But Catherine saw something else in Christopher's expression. Concern, yes, but also respect for Lily's agency. "Let's ask Lily if she wants to help," Catherine decided. "It's her choice. It's her." They found Lily in her room, working on homework with an intensity that seemed excessive for second-grade math. Catherine knocked gently on the doorframe. "Hey, sweetie, can we talk for a minute?" Lily looked up, her eyes immediately wary. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, nothing wrong. We just wanted to ask you something." "The boys want to bake cookies tomorrow. Mr. Christopher offered to help supervise. We wanted to know if you'd like to be involved, but only if you want to. There's absolutely no pressure." Lily's expression cycled through several emotions: fear, uncertainty, longing, and finally determination. "Can I think about it?" "Of course," Christopher said, entering the room and sitting on the floor beside her bed. "You know, Lily, when I was a kid, I had some bad experiences in kitchens too, different from yours, but still hard. For years I avoided cooking because it reminded me of those times." "You did?" Lily looked surprised. "But you're a grown-up." "Grown-ups aren't supposed to be scared." "Grown-ups get scared all the time," Christopher assured her. "We just get better at hiding it. But you know what I learned? The way to take back power from bad memories is to create new good memories in the same situation. It doesn't erase what happened, but it gives you something else to think about. Did you do that with cooking? I did. About 5 years ago, I took a cooking class. It was terrifying at first. My hands would shake when I picked up a knife. I'd flinch near the stove. But slowly, with practice and patience, cooking became something I enjoyed instead of something I feared. Lily considered this, her young face serious. If I help bake cookies tomorrow, will you stay the whole time? And Mommy too? We'll both be right there, Catherine promised. And if at any point you want to stop, we stop. No questions, no judgment. Okay, Lily said quietly. I'll try. The next day was Saturday, and the cookie-baking adventure turned into something magical. Christopher had come prepared with child-safe cooking tools, plastic mixing bowls, silicone spatulas, and most importantly, special heat-resistant gloves designed for children that would protect Lily's healing hands from any accidental heat exposure. "These are amazing," Lily exclaimed when she saw them. "They're my size." "I had them specially made," Christopher admitted. "I wanted you to be safe, but also to feel like a real chef." They made chocolate chip cookies, and while there were definitely mishaps, Lucas ate more chocolate chips than went into the dough. Noah got eggshells in the bowl that had to be fished out, and Jake somehow managed to get butter in his hair. The kitchen filled with laughter instead of fear. Catherine watched from her position by the oven, managing the actual baking, while Christopher supervised the mixing and measuring. She saw Lily's face gradually relax, saw the tension leave her small shoulders, saw her actually smile and giggle when flour poofed up into Noah's face. "She's going to be okay," Christopher said quietly, moving beside Catherine while the kids were occupied with decorating cooled cookies. "It'll take time, but she's strong. She'll heal." "Thanks to you," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave her new memories, good ones." "We gave her new memories," Christopher corrected. "This is a team effort." Later that evening, after the kids were in bed and the kitchen was cleaned, Catherine and Christopher sat on her apartment balcony with cups of tea. The early autumn air was crisp, and the city lights sparkled below them. Their new apartment, another upgrade Christopher had helped arrange, this time a 3-bedroom place in a safe neighborhood with good schools, was modest but comfortable. A real home. "Christopher," Catherine began, then paused, gathering courage. "I need to tell you something." He turned to her, giving her his full attention. "I'm listening." "I'm falling for you. Actually, I think I've already fallen, and it terrifies me because I have 4 kids to protect, and I can't afford to make mistakes. But I also can't keep pretending that you're just a friend or just a helpful benefactor. You're more than that. To me and to my children. And I need to know if this is real for you, or if you're going to wake up one day and realize you've gotten in over your head." Christopher set down his tea, his expression serious. "Catherine, I've spent 20 years building a company. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've faced hostile takeovers and market crashes and corporate espionage. None of that scared me the way this conversation scares me right now." Catherine's heart sank. "Oh, I see. I shouldn't have—" "Let me finish," Christopher interrupted gently. "It scares me because this matters. You matter. Those 4 kids in there matter more to me than anything else in my life. And yes, I'm in over my head. I've never been a father. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but I'm willing to figure it out because the alternative, walking away from you, from them, that's not an option I can even consider anymore." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm falling for you too. That I have been since the moment I saw you burst through that apartment door, fierce and protective, and ready to fight the world for your kids. I'm saying that I want this to be real. I want to be part of your family, if you'll have me. Not as a benefactor or a friend, but as something more. As someone who loves you and wants to build a life with you." Catherine felt tears streaming down her face. "I haven't been loved by someone in so long. I don't even know if I remember how to do this." "Then we'll figure it out together," Christopher said, reaching for her hand. "We'll make mistakes, we'll have hard days, but we'll face them together. The kids, they've gotten so attached to you. If this doesn't work—" "It'll work," Christopher said with certainty. "I'm not going anywhere, Catherine. I promise you that. I promise them that." Catherine leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They sat like that for a long time, just holding each other under the stars, two people who had spent so long struggling alone, finally finding partnership. Inside the apartment, Lily had gotten up for water and saw them through the window. She smiled, then quietly went back to bed. Maybe, she thought, Christopher really would be their new daddy after all. 3 months after the cookie-baking day, the Morrison-Hayes household, as it had come to be known, though no official arrangements had been made, had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Christopher had gradually moved more of his belongings into Catherine's apartment, spending most nights there, becoming a steady presence in the children's daily routines. But October brought a new challenge: the trial of Mrs. Patterson. The prosecution had built a strong case. Medical records documented Lily's injuries. Neighbor testimonies confirmed the neglect, and most damning, investigators had found Mrs. Patterson's personal journal, where she'd written extensively about teaching that spoiled girl some responsibility, and how children these days need to learn the value of hard work. Catherine had been subpoenaed to testify, and the prospect filled her with dread. But she wasn't the one the prosecution most wanted. They needed Lily. "Absolutely not," Catherine said flatly when the prosecutor, Amanda Pierce, first approached them. "My daughter has been through enough. I won't put her through the trauma of testifying." "Mrs. Morrison, I understand your concerns," Amanda said sympathetically. They were in a conference room at the prosecutor's office, Christopher sitting supportively beside Catherine. "But without Lily's testimony, we have a much weaker case. Mrs. Patterson's defense attorney is claiming that Lily volunteered to cook, that she enjoyed it, that Mrs. Patterson was simply supervising an enthusiastic child who wanted to help. Lily's own words could counter that narrative." "She's 8 years old," Christopher interjected. His relationship with Catherine was now common knowledge, and while some people judged the rapid progression, the prosecutor's office had been nothing but supportive. Having her relive her trauma in front of a courtroom full of strangers, with Mrs. Patterson staring at her, that could cause serious psychological damage. "We'd take every precaution," Amanda assured them. "Child testimony protocols. We can have her therapy dog present. Dr. Foster can be in the courtroom. She can testify via video if being in the same room as Mrs. Patterson is too traumatic, and I'll be very gentle with my questions." "And the defense attorney?" Catherine asked pointedly. "Will they be gentle?" Amanda's expression said everything. "I'll object to any inappropriate questioning, but I can't guarantee the cross-examination won't be difficult." The decision, they all agreed, had to be Lily's. That evening, Catherine and Christopher sat down with her to explain the situation. They'd been honest with Lily from the beginning about the legal proceedings, about Mrs. Patterson facing consequences for what she'd done. But testifying was different. "I want to do it," Lily said immediately. "Sweetie, you don't have to," Catherine stressed. "There's other evidence. Mrs. Patterson will still face charges even without your testimony." "But maybe not enough," Lily said with a wisdom beyond her years. She'd been working with Dr. Foster for months now, processing her trauma, and the therapy was clearly helping. "That's what you're not saying. Without me talking, maybe she doesn't go to jail for very long. And then she could hurt other kids." That's very brave of you to think about other children," Christopher said carefully. "But Lily, you have to think about yourself too. This will be hard. They'll ask you detailed questions about things that were painful. You'll have to see Mrs. Patterson again. Lily's hands, now mostly healed, but bearing visible scars, clenched into fists. I'm scared, she admitted, but I'm also angry. What she did was wrong, and I want to tell people what really happened, not what she says happened, what really happened. Catherine pulled her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. You are the bravest person I know. But I need you to understand, once you start testifying, you can't take it back. If it gets too hard and you want to stop, you can, but you'll have to finish what you started. Are you sure? I'm sure, Mommy. I can do this. Dr. Foster says I'm stronger than I think I am. The trial began on a cold November morning. The courtroom was smaller than Catherine had imagined, but no less intimidating. Mrs. Patterson sat at the defense table, looking older and smaller than Catherine remembered, her expression carefully neutral. Catherine testified first, describing her childcare arrangement with Mrs. Patterson, her complete ignorance of what was happening, the horror of discovering Lily's injuries. The defense attorney, Marcus Webb, was aggressive in his cross-examination. Isn't it true, Mrs. Morrison, that you were hardly ever home? That you worked such long hours you had little idea what your children were doing? I was working to support my family, Catherine said firmly. I trusted Mrs. Patterson to care for them properly. That trust was betrayed. But if you had been more present, more attentive, perhaps you would have noticed your daughter's injury sooner. Amanda objected before Catherine could respond, but the damage was done. The defense was trying to shift blame to Catherine, to paint Mrs. Patterson as overwhelmed by a neglectful mother's expectations. Christopher testified next, describing his initial phone call with Lily, his decision to investigate, what he found at the apartment. Webb tried to paint Christopher as a meddling stranger, but the jury seemed unimpressed by that angle. Several neighbors testified, their accounts damning. Mrs. Parker from apartment 3A described hearing a child crying in the kitchen, smoke alarms going off, and Mrs. Patterson yelling at Lily to stop being dramatic when she burned herself. Mr. Chen from apartment 2C testified that he'd once offered to help when he smelled burning and heard distress, but Mrs. Patterson had turned him away, claiming everything was fine. But everyone knew the real testimony was yet to come. Lily took the stand on the trial's third day. She looked impossibly small in the witness box, despite the booster seat provided. Dr. Foster sat in the front row, where Lily could see him. Catherine held Christopher's hand so tightly she cut off his circulation, but he didn't complain. Amanda approached the stand gently. Hi, Lily. I know this is scary, but you're doing great. Can you tell the jury your name and how old you are? My name is Lily Catherine Morrison. I'm 8 years old. My birthday was last month. That's wonderful. Happy belated birthday. Lily, I need to ask you some questions about when Mrs. Patterson used to take care of you and your brothers. Is that okay? Lily nodded, her eyes briefly finding her mother's in the gallery. Catherine gave her an encouraging smile, though inside she was breaking. How old were you when you first started cooking for your brothers? 4. I had just turned 4. A ripple went through the courtroom. 4 was shockingly young. And who taught you to cook? Mrs. Patterson. She showed me once how to make macaroni and cheese. Then she said I needed to do it myself because she had important things to do. What kind of things did she have to do? She watched her TV shows and talked on the phone to her friends, and sometimes she would leave the apartment for hours. When she left, who watched your brothers? I did. How old were your brothers then? They were babies, not even 1 year old yet. More murmurs. Amanda let the impact settle before continuing. Lily, did you want to cook? No, Lily said softly. I was scared of the stove. It was so high and hot. But Mrs. Patterson said I had to because my brothers needed to eat, and if I didn't feed them, they would be taken away, and it would be my fault. Did she say anything else to scare you? Lily's voice got even quieter. She said if I told my mommy, terrible things would happen, that mommy would lose her jobs and we'd be homeless. That I was being selfish if I complained, because at least I had a home and food. She showed me pictures on her phone of kids in shelters and said that's where we'd end up if I was bad. Catherine felt Christopher's arm around her shoulders as she fought not to sob aloud. She'd known intellectually what had happened. But hearing her daughter's small voice recounting this psychological torture was unbearable. "Lily, can you show the jury your hands?" Lily hesitated, then slowly held up her hands. Even from the gallery, the scarring was visible, shiny patches of healed skin, slight discoloration, the physical evidence of years of burn injuries. "How did you get these scars?" "From cooking. I burned myself a lot. On the stove, on the pans, on the oven door. Sometimes I would drop things and hot water or oil would splash on me." "Did Mrs. Patterson help you when you got burned?" "Sometimes she would run cold water over it. But mostly she said I needed to be more careful and stop being clumsy." "Did she ever take you to a doctor?" "No. She said doctors cost money and Mommy couldn't afford it, and it was my fault for being careless." Amanda's questions continued, each answer building a damning picture of systematic exploitation and psychological abuse. Finally, she asked the question everyone had been waiting for. "Lily, did you love Mrs. Patterson?" Lily thought about this carefully. "I don't know. Sometimes she was nice. She would let me watch cartoons after I cleaned up the kitchen, and she bought me a doll once for my birthday, but mostly I was scared of her. And I was so tired all the time." "Do you think what Mrs. Patterson did to you was right?" "No," Lily said firmly, her voice stronger now. "Kids shouldn't have to cook for other kids. Kids should get to be kids. That's what Dr. Foster says, and I believe him." Amanda smiled gently. "Thank you, Lily. You've been very brave. I have no more questions." But then came the part Catherine had been dreading. Marcus Webb approached the stand, his expression sympathetic but his intent clear, to discredit an 8-year-old's testimony. "Hi, Lily. My name is Mr. Webb. I just have a few questions for you, okay?" Lily nodded, her earlier confidence wavering. "You said Mrs. Patterson taught you to cook once, and then you did it yourself. But isn't it possible she taught you multiple times, that she was supervising you, helping you learn?" "No. She showed me once, then I had to do it alone." "But you were only 4. Surely you couldn't remember perfectly what she taught you after just one time." "I had to remember," Lily said simply. "If I didn't, my brothers didn't eat." "Come now, Lily, isn't it true that you actually enjoyed cooking? That you were a helpful little girl who wanted to take care of her baby brothers?" "No!" Lily's voice rose. "I didn't enjoy it. I was scared every single time. My hands hurt. I cried a lot, but I had to be quiet so Mrs. Patterson wouldn't get mad." "Your Honor," Webb said calmly, "the witness is becoming emotional." "Because you're lying," Lily shouted, shocking everyone in the courtroom. "You're making it sound like I wanted to do it. I didn't. I never wanted to. I just wanted to play and watch cartoons and be a normal kid. But I couldn't because Mrs. Patterson made me cook, and if I didn't, she said terrible things would happen." The judge banged her gavel gently. "Mr. Webb, I think that's enough. This child has been through sufficient questioning." "But, Your Honor, I have a right to cross-examine, and you've exercised that right. I'm invoking child witness protections. Step back, Counselor." Webb had no choice but to comply. Lily was released from the stand, and she ran straight to Catherine, burying her face in her mother's chest. Christopher wrapped his arms around both of them as Lily sobbed out her fear and relief and trauma. In the end, Lily's testimony was the turning point. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on all counts. Mrs. Patterson was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child endangerment, exploitation of a minor, and criminal neglect. As they left the courthouse, Lily, between her mother and Christopher, holding both their hands, Catherine felt a weight lift that she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. "It's over," she whispered to Christopher. "No," he corrected gently. "It's just beginning." That night, Christopher officially moved the last of his belongings into their apartment. And 1 week later, in a quiet ceremony in front of a judge with just family present, he formally proposed adoption papers for all 4 children. "I want to be their father," he told Catherine. "Legally, officially, if they'll let me." The children were called in to hear the news. The triplets, now 5 years old and understanding more of the world, cheered immediately. But everyone waited for Lily's response. She looked at Christopher for a long moment, her scarred hands folded in her lap, her expression serious. Then she smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that had become more common in recent months. "Daddy," she said simply. "Yes, Daddy." 6 months later, the finalized adoption papers came through on a sunny April morning. Christopher Hayes was now the legal father of 4 children, and while he and Catherine weren't yet married, they decided to take that step slowly, giving everyone time to adjust. They were, in every way that mattered, a family. Lily's 9th birthday party was a celebration not just of her birth, but of her healing. The party was held in Christopher's, their backyard. They'd moved into a spacious house in Evanston the month before, with enough bedrooms for everyone to have their own space, a yard where the triplets could run wild, and most importantly, a kitchen designed with safety in mind. Dr. Foster attended the party, as did Patricia Chen, who had become a family friend. Amanda Pierce came with her own daughter, who was close to Lily's age. Even Dr. Wong stopped by with a special gift, a cookbook designed for young chefs with an inscription: "To Lily, who turned her pain into strength, may all your future cooking be filled with joy." But the real surprise came when a familiar car pulled up. Catherine's face went pale as she recognized the vehicle. "Mom," she whispered. "What is she doing here?" Christopher touched her arm gently. "I called her. I hope that's okay. She's driven 6 hours to be here. She wants to meet her grandchildren." Catherine's mother, Linda Sullivan, emerged from the car looking nervous and hopeful. She was in her late 50s, her hair graying, her eyes, the same blue as Catherine's, filled with regret. "Catherine," she said softly, "thank you for letting me come." The story of Catherine and her mother was one Christopher had learned piece by piece over their months together. Linda had left when Catherine was pregnant with the triplets, unable to handle the stress of her daughter's situation. Disapproving of Catherine's choice to keep all the babies, they'd spoken only sporadically in the 5 years since. "I'm not sure this is a good idea," Catherine said quietly, though Christopher could see the yearning in her face. "The kids don't know you. I know, and that's my fault. But I'd like a chance to change that, if you'll let me." Linda's voice broke. "I was wrong, Catherine, about everything, about leaving you when you needed me most, about judging your choices, about not being there for my grandchildren. I've regretted it every single day." Lily, with her uncanny ability to sense emotional moments, appeared beside Catherine. "Mommy." "Who's that?" Catherine knelt beside her daughter. "This is my mother, your grandmother. She's come a very long way to meet you." Lily studied Linda with the same serious assessment she'd given Christopher that first day. Then she looked at her scarred hands, then back up at her grandmother. "Did you know what happened to me?" Lily asked directly. Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Not until recently. Christopher called me a few weeks ago and told me everything." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. If I had been here, if I had been part of your life, maybe you could have helped," Lily finished. "But you weren't here." She paused, and everyone held their breath. Then Lily continued, "But you're here now. That's what Dr. Foster says is important. Not what we did wrong in the past, but what we choose to do now." Linda broke down completely, kneeling to embrace her granddaughter. Catherine watched, tears streaming down her own face as years of hurt began to heal. The triplets, curious about the commotion, rushed over. "Who that?" Jake demanded. "That's your grandmother," Christopher explained. "Like how I'm your daddy now, she's your mommy's mommy." "Another grandma," Lucas said excitedly. "We have lots of family now." And they did. Christopher's small circle of friends had embraced the children completely. His assistant Jennifer was Aunt Jenny to the triplets. His business partner Robert had become Uncle Rob. The family had expanded in ways none of them could have imagined. As the party continued, Christopher found Catherine standing by the window, watching their children play in the yard with their grandmother. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I don't know," Catherine admitted. "I'm angry at her for leaving, but I'm also grateful she came back. Is that okay, to feel both things?" "It's more than okay. It's human." Christopher wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. "Family is complicated, but what matters is that everyone here is trying. Your mother is trying to make amends. You're trying to forgive. The kids are trying to accept her. That's all any of us can do." "When did you become so wise?" Catherine asked with a small laugh. "When I fell in love with a woman who taught me what real strength looks like, what real family looks like." Catherine turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Christopher Hayes, are you getting sentimental on me?" "Maybe," he admitted with a smile. "Is that okay?" "It's more than okay." Catherine reached up to kiss him, soft and sweet. "It's perfect." Their moment was interrupted by Lily calling for them. "Mommy, Daddy, come see what Grandma brought." "Daddy." The word still sent a thrill through Christopher every time he heard it. He took Catherine's hand, and they went to see what surprise Linda had brought. It turned out to be photo albums, pictures of Catherine as a child, family history the kids had never known. Linda spread them out on the patio table, and the children crowded around, fascinated. "That's Mommy!" Noah pointed at a picture of a young Catherine holding a doll. "She looks like Lily," Jake observed. "She does," Linda agreed. "Your mommy was a very special little girl, just like all of you are very special." As the afternoon wore on, something remarkable happened. Linda, who had been so absent, began to find her place in the family. She was tentative at first, unsure how to interact with grandchildren she'd never known. But the triplets, with their uninhibited affection, made it easy. And Lily, with her remarkable capacity for grace, gave her grandmother a chance to prove herself. Later, as the sun began to set and guests started to leave, Patricia Chen pulled Christopher and Catherine aside. "I need to tell you both something," she said, her expression serious. "The state has been reviewing my case files, looking at outcomes for children I've worked with. Your family, what you've built here, it's been used as an example of what's possible when all the pieces come together right. The right intervention at the right time, the right support system, the right people caring. We're just doing what any family would do," Catherine protested. "But you're not," Patricia said gently. "Most families in crisis don't get this outcome. Most vulnerable children don't get a Christopher Hayes to answer their call. Most overworked mothers don't get offered meaningful employment and comprehensive support. What you have here is special, and the state wants to know if you'd be willing to speak publicly about your experience." Christopher and Catherine exchanged glances. "What would that involve?" Christopher asked. "Interviews, maybe some media appearances. The goal would be to raise awareness about the exploitation of children in informal childcare arrangements. To push for better regulations, better oversight, better support for working families. Your story, Lily's story, could help change policies that protect other children." "I don't want to exploit what my daughter went through," Catherine said firmly. "Neither do I," Patricia assured her. "This would be completely voluntary, and Lily would have full say in her level of involvement. But think about it, that's all I ask." They promised to think about it, but Christopher suspected he already knew what Catherine would decide. She'd spent months working in Meridian's community outreach program, and she'd discovered a passion for helping struggling families. If sharing their story could create systemic change, she'd do it. That night, after all the guests had left and the children were in bed, Christopher found Catherine in Lily's room. She was sitting on the edge of their daughter's bed, gently stroking her hair while Lily slept. "She's so peaceful now," Catherine whispered as Christopher joined her. "Do you remember how she used to sleep when we first met? Always tense, always ready to wake up, always worried about her brothers." "She's healed," Christopher said softly. "Not completely. She still has nightmares sometimes, still hides her hands when she's self-conscious. But she's so much better." "Because of you," Catherine said. "You answered her call. You came when she needed someone. You gave our family a chance to be whole." "I think it was mutual," Christopher replied. "You gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. A purpose beyond building wealth, a family to come home to, a reason to be better than I was." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just watching their daughter sleep. Finally, Catherine spoke again. "I want to do it, the public speaking thing. I want to tell our story." "I figured you would," Christopher said with a slight smile, "but I need you beside me. Can you do that?" "Catherine Morrison, I stood beside you through a trial where your daughter had to relive her trauma. I stood beside you while you rebuilt your relationship with your mother. I stood beside you as we became a family. Of course I'll stand beside you for this too." "Not Morrison," Catherine said suddenly. "Not anymore." Christopher looked at her quizzically. "What?" Catherine's cheeks flushed. "I mean, the kids are Morrison Hayes now, officially. And I was thinking, we've been doing this backward, haven't you noticed? You became their father before we got married. We're living together, raising kids, building a life, but we haven't actually." "Catherine, are you proposing to me?" Christopher asked, unable to keep the amusement out of his voice. "Maybe," Catherine said defensively. "I mean, why should you get to do all the proposing? This is the 21st century. Women can—" Christopher kissed her, cutting off her nervous rambling. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "Yes," he said simply. "Yes, what?" "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to make this official in every possible way. Yes to all of it." Catherine laughed, the sound bright and joyful. "I don't even have a ring." "I do," Christopher admitted, reaching into his pocket. He'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. It was a simple band with a single diamond, elegant but practical, perfect for Catherine's life. "I was going to wait for a more romantic moment, but I think this is pretty perfect, actually." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and Catherine stared at it through happy tears. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful and brave and amazing, and I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life proving that to you every single day." They kissed again, sealing their promise to each other. From her bed, Lily stirred slightly, murmured, "Mommy? Daddy?" and then settled back into sleep, comforted by the knowledge that her family was near. 3 months later, Catherine and Christopher were married in a small ceremony in their backyard. Lily was the flower girl, her scarred hands holding a basket of petals that she scattered with joy. The triplets were ring-bearers, a job that devolved into chaos when they started tossing the rings to each other like a game of catch, but everyone laughed and no one minded. Linda cried through the entire ceremony, standing in the front row beside Patricia, Amanda, Dr. Foster, and Dr. Wong, all the people who had helped piece their broken family back together. And when the minister announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," 4 children cheered loudly, rushing forward to embrace their parents in a group hug that nearly knocked everyone over. The following fall, Catherine testified before a state legislative committee about the need for better childcare oversight and support for working families. Her speech was powerful, drawing on her personal experience, but also the broader systemic issues she'd learned about through her work at Meridian Industries. Lily, now 10, sat in the front row with Christopher, watching her mother advocate for change. The legislation that eventually passed, nicknamed Lily's Law by the media, required stricter background checks and regular welfare visits for informal childcare providers, increased funding for subsidized daycare, and expanded workplace protections for single parents. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Christopher expanded Meridian's community programs, creating a foundation specifically focused on supporting vulnerable families. Catherine became its director, using her own experience to shape programs that actually addressed real needs rather than checking boxes. The triplets started first grade, bringing their typical chaos to yet another environment. Their teachers learned quickly that Jake, Lucas, and Noah came as a package deal, mischievous, energetic, and fiercely protective of each other and their big sister. And Lily blossomed. She joined the school cooking club, transforming her trauma into passion. She started a kids' cooking blog with Christopher's help, sharing simple, safe recipes designed for children. She became a voice for kids who had experienced trauma, speaking at assemblies about resilience and healing. Her hands would always bear scars, but she wore them now with pride. They told a story of survival, of courage, of refusing to be defeated by circumstances. They reminded her daily that she was stronger than she knew. 5 years after that initial phone call, on a crisp autumn evening, the Hayes family gathered in their kitchen. Christopher supervised while Lily, now 13, and teaching her 10-year-old brothers how to make pasta from scratch, guided Jake, Lucas, and Noah through the steps. "Slowly," Lily instructed as Lucas poured flour. "And Jake, stop eating the cheese. It's for the sauce." "But it's so good," Jake protested. "You can have some after we finish," Lily promised. "Noah, you're doing great with the eggs. Perfect technique." Catherine stood in the doorway watching her family. Christopher caught her eye and smiled, that same warm smile that had captured her heart years ago. He moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," Catherine admitted. "When I think about where we were 5 years ago—" "Don't," Christopher interrupted gently. "Don't think about what was. Think about what is. What we built from those ashes." "What Lily built," Catherine corrected. "She made that call. She was brave enough to ask for help. Rita and I was lucky enough to answer." In the kitchen, Lily was laughing as Noah accidentally flung flour everywhere, creating a cloud that covered all 3 boys in white powder. They looked at each other and immediately started a flour fight, their giggles filling the house with joy. "Boys!" Lily protested, but she was laughing too. "We'll never get dinner made at this rate." "Need some backup?" Christopher called, already rolling up his sleeves. "Yes, Daddy, help!" As Christopher joined the chaos in the kitchen, Catherine remained in the doorway watching her family. Her scarred, beautiful, chaotic, perfect family. She thought about the young, desperate mother she'd been, working 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water, trusting the wrong person to care for her children. She thought about Lily's small, scared voice on that phone call, asking a stranger for help. And she thought about all the families still struggling, still desperate, still one phone call away from either disaster or salvation. Tomorrow, she would continue her work at the foundation. Tomorrow, she would keep fighting for systemic change. Tomorrow, she would keep advocating for families who needed support. But tonight, she would simply be here, with her husband, with her children, in their kitchen, making dinner together, creating new memories that would overlay the old pain with new joy. The phone rang, a perfectly ordinary sound in any household. But Catherine and Christopher both paused, catching each other's eye across the room. Because they both remembered another phone call 5 years ago that had changed everything. Christopher answered, "Hayes residence. Yes, this is Christopher Hayes." "What?" "Slow down. I can barely understand you." His expression changed, becoming focused and serious. Catherine moved closer, concerned. "You're calling from a payphone at a grocery store? Your mother's boyfriend has been hurting you and your sister? You found my number in a newspaper article about helping kids? Okay, sweetheart, listen to me very carefully. I'm going to help you. First, I need you to tell me." Catherine watched as her husband, the same man who had once answered a random call from a desperate child, began the process of helping another family in crisis. She smiled through tears, understanding that this was their mission now, their purpose. Lily appeared beside her mother, following her gaze to Christopher on the phone. She understood immediately what was happening. "Daddy's helping someone else now," Lily said softly. "Like he helped us." "Yes, baby, like he helped us." "That's good," Lily said with the wisdom of a child who had survived and thrived. "Everyone deserves someone to answer when they call for help." As Christopher gathered information, making calls to authorities, coordinating help for another child in danger, their family moved around him. The triplets set the table, their earlier flower fight forgotten in the face of routine. Lily finished the pasta, her scarred hands moving confidently through tasks that once represented trauma, but now represented healing. Catherine began preparing a salad, already mentally calculating how many extra people might need feeding if Christopher brought home another family in crisis, because that was who they were now. Not just a family who had survived, but a family who helped others survive too. And it all started with one scared little girl, one phone call, and one man who chose to answer.